Hi, Jeremy Cordeaux in the Court of Public Opinion. I'm just on air here to let you know that we'll be live streaming the Court of Public Opinion every Friday between 9 o'clock and 12 on jeremycordeaux.com. Please join us. We'd love to have you.
Welcome back to Wavelength, sparking the convos about Adelaide you should be having now. David, one news story that's kind of grabbed both of our attentions over the last couple of weeks is the whole story with Alex Antic.
Yeah.
Alex Antics in Parliament.
Alex
you like
Antics,
that one?
Alex Antics Antics.
Yeah, you can hit me up for that, advertiser. Yeah. But yeah, if you don't know what's been going on there, basically, David, do you want to walk our listeners through what's been happening there?
Yeah, so Alex Antic, he's a Liberal senator in the federal parliament, a South Australian Liberal senator representing good old SA in Canberra.
Yep.
He, I guess, has become somewhat of a controversial figure. He's become a bit of a figurehead, I suppose, for giving those unvaccinated people in society more rights, more freedoms.
Yeah.
Obviously, fair enough. He can fight for that if he wants. That's great. But he sort of has come under fire more recently, I suppose. Well, he tried to come back into South Australia this week.
Yeah.
And he was immediately sent to hotel quarantine.
And why was he sent to hotel quarantine? Is he not vaccinated?
He's not vaccinated.
Jeez.
He got put into the... he got let in on an exemption for unvaccinated travellers.
Yeah.
And, I mean, I assume that's publicly available information.
And what Medi hotel did he have to go to?
I don't know. Do you know what Medi hotel he had to go to?
I don't.
They
I
haven't
hope it was
said.
one of the bad ones, though.
The
I
Pullman,
hope it was
probably.
one of the ones that didn't have room service, you know? No continental breakfast.
It's just like a hole in the wall.
Yeah.
But yeah, so he has, I guess rightfully been a bit condemned. And the interesting thing is, though, everyone thought that he was vaccinated because even though he's been, I suppose, pushing for these more freedoms for unvaccinated people, Scott Morrison, the Prime Minister, the other week said, yeah, he's double vaxxed. He's fully vaxxed.
Yeah.
So is he like... Clearly he's not, because otherwise he would have been able to come to South Australia without any restriction. You can come in, just get tested and go do your thing.
Yeah. Well, yeah, that's right. I mean, the police escort kind of says that he's not vaccinated,
right? Yeah.
Right? And I think what's interesting is, the mixed messaging going on. And ScoMo kind of came out the other day saying, yeah, look, I apologise for, not being... I didn't mean to mislead the public into Alex's vaccination status. And he said, well, when I had a chat with him the other day, I said, and you are double vaccinated, and he didn't correct me. So that was all. Apparently, that's all ScoMo needs to hear. Alex neither confirmed nor denied whether he was vaccinated, and that was enough for Scott.
That's
that was
good
enough for old
him.
mate Scott. Okay, look, we won't ask you to deliberate on that any further. But yeah, it turns out that he isn't fully vaccinated, and it's just interesting. It just brings up an interesting topic, doesn't it? I mean, how the hell can the Liberal Party or our politicians expect people to go out and get vaccinated when, their very own members of Parliament are not doing the same and are still expecting to be going in and out of Canberra, crossing over borders and lines, and getting exemptions and all of that. How that is just a huge double standard, and how can that really justifiably be allowed?
How the hell is it fair? It's such a double standard.
Yeah.
I think that this is just tremendously upsetting and infuriating that this guy is not vaccinated.
Yeah.
He is employed by us to represent us in South Australia in Parliament.
Yeah.
He is there to travel regularly. He has to constantly be in contact with people.
Yeah.
And still he doesn't need this vaccination. He can cross back into South Australia without a vaccine, apparently, even though he's in quarantine. But how on earth is that fair when so many people have been told to go out and get this vaccine, which I think that, yes, I encourage people to get vaccinated. I think you definitely should. But the amount of people that it's been mandated for them, but it's not mandated for him, just drives me absolutely insane.
Yeah.
How is he meant to be able to stand up and represent us if he's in quarantine for 2 weeks? Shouldn't he be working? Shouldn't he be vaccinated and out in South Australia, meeting constituents, finding out what we want, what we need from him, talking to other people? Instead, he's just wasting time, our money, in a bloody hotel.
Yeah, just living it up in the Portmans.
I just can't believe it. There's no way somebody like that should be in politics or representing anybody.
Yeah, no, 100%. I agree completely. It's just... Yeah, it just reeks of, politicians once again being allowed to operate above the law and not follow the rules that the rest of us have to. As you said, mandates, a whole bunch of work mandates came into effect this week. And, for whatever reason, there are a bunch of people out there that, have decided not to get the vaccine, whether we agree with that or not. As a result, they have lost their livelihood. Why doesn't that apply to this guy?
Why doesn't that apply to this guy? I don't know. It should be a mandate in Parliament, and I think
if anywhere, that's where it should be mandated first, above anywhere else. But look, we want to know what you think. Hit us up on the text line 0428 927 927. Tell us what you think. Should this be mandated? Should politicians have to be fully vaccinated? Is this a problem? Is this fair? We want to know what you have to say. But look, after the break, we're talking about a new push to legalise recreational cannabis here in SA. You're listening to Wavelength.
Wavelength.
Welcome back to Wavelength, sparking the convos about Adelaide you should be having. David, this week you spoke to South Australian Greens parliamentary leader Tammy Franks about her push to legalise cannabis recreationally this week. It's an interesting proposition.
I did. I was lucky enough to have a chat with Tammy while she was in Parliament. It was quite fun. She has proposed a bill that would see South Australia, in her words, become, I guess, not just the food and wine hub of Australia, but the weed hub too.
I thought we already were, to be honest.
Legally.
Right. Okay, yes. Legitimately.
Legitimately.
Nice. That's good. Okay, cool. So you had a chat with her today, this week about that. Yep. So let's hear that now.
Wavelength.
Welcome to Wavelength. It's an absolute pleasure to have you back. We've spoken to you before, I suppose, about legalisation of cannabis in different forms, whether it's recreationally or medicinally, but you've brought this new bill forward. And I was wondering if you could tell me and our listeners a bit more about the bill being presented to Parliament and I suppose what implications it would have for the legality of cannabis in South Australia.
Absolutely. The Greens have actually at a state and a federal level this week announced plans to not only legalise cannabis but indeed treat drugs as a health issue, get real on drugs really. We have some plans about pill testing and other things that we'll be rolling out in coming months. But yesterday I introduced a bill into the state parliament that would legalise cannabis within a very safe framework. It recognises that prohibition has failed. It didn't work with alcohol, and it's not working with cannabis. 1 in 3 Australians have tried cannabis, despite the fact that we've made it illegal and we've criminalised those people who do use cannabis. The SA Cannabis Licensing Agency would act to oversight the industry and licensing, ensure, fit and proper persons. It would be very much an adult consumption, the same way that alcohol is. It would provide restrictions on where premises could be cited, the sort of people who could have the licences, but also, and very importantly, I think, give you some surety about what the product is.
I mean, one of those opportunities that you spoke to, I think it was the Advertiser about earlier this week, was the tourism element to things. And you mentioned how it would put SA on the map in a similar way to how our food and wine industry has done. What sort of boost do you see for the economy in that respect with cannabis? That's
right. We do boast, and we have beautiful food and wine from our clean, green environment. We'll imagine beautiful food, wine and weed from our clean, green environments, and people coming to have, with their tea or coffee at the end of a meal. It would be just another offering, I think. And if we were to have that first mover advantage in Australia, then there is that tourism aspect. But we have a lot to be proud of with our wine industry in particular, and I see them as very similar in some ways.
I mean, there's a huge opportunity there. But on the flip side, and I do have to play the devil's advocate for a bit, I've seen some punters say that South Australia becoming known as, I suppose, the cannabis state would blemish our reputation. What would you say to those sort of naysayers?
Well, the reputation of South Australia is, I think, a progressive state that has based its policies not on fear and but indeed on, reason and rationale and embracing the realities of drugs as a health issue rather than pursuing this failed prohibition approach. I think it's actually good for our reputation to be seen as a mature jurisdiction where we have compassion for those people who seek to use cannabis and stop the hypocrisy. I mean, you've hit the nail on the head previously where cigarettes and alcohol are legal in this state and they're well regulated, but they are actually often more harmful than cannabis. That's the reality of the science here. So let's get real about cannabis and recognise it as a drug, but treat it again from a health perspective rather than, and a harm minimisation perspective rather than from a policing and punitive and punishment approach.
There's also people, and I've spoken to others in the medicinal cannabis space who say that, I mean, it's already accessible to people that do need it medicinally. That's already legal in Australia. So why should we make it legal recreationally when people who actually need it as a drug can get it today?
Yeah, look, my bill, I don't use the term recreational in the bill. I use adult use. And sometimes people are using something medicinally as well as recreationally. Perhaps they have pain and perhaps that's the better outcome for them. People do medicate with alcohol and cigarettes as well. That is the reality of drugs. What I say there, though, is if you think that medicinal cannabis, while it is legal and lawful now in Australia, which, my goodness, was a hell of a fight, if you think it's accessible and affordable, you are not a patient who is on the poverty line or struggling to continue their prescription and indeed missing some prescriptions going to the black market for, every second or third month because they simply can't afford the product that is regulated, that is safe, that is controlled, that they would prefer, but at the moment they're criminalised and had to go to the black market because they simply can't afford it.
Absolutely. I guess finally, how confident are you that this bill will get up in Parliament?
I don't believe this bill will get anywhere right now. What I believe will happen, however, is some sort of inquiry will happen, and other states are already looking at this issue. I mentioned in my speech Queensland, who's had a look at their prison systems and realised that a lot of people are in there because of cannabis, but also Victoria and Fiona Patten, the leader of the Reason Party's work in Victoria, looking at cannabis use in that state. So we're not alone in looking at this issue. I would hope, though, that South Australia will be unique in being bipartisan or cross-party.
Wavelength.
Thanks so much for that there, David. Anyway, up next, we're talking to South Australia's entirely gay rugby team. You're listening to Wavelength.
Wavelength.
Welcome back to Wavelength. So it's been another weird week here in SA and Australia. I totally understand if you can't keep up anymore. So here's what the hell happened this week.
What the hell is going on this week? Wavelength on Fresh 92.7.
Yes, another big week in the news world with Omicron continuing its reign of terror, but something even more terrifying than that, the bombshell report into workplace culture in Parliament House, which found 1 in 3 staff have experienced sexual harassment. The Prime Minister said it was appalling, presumably that the news was made public, and while some media outlets described it as shocking, are any of us really surprised that a workplace filled with alleged rapists and men who masturbate on female colleagues' desks might just be a little bit toxic? Staying in the wonderful world of politics, Jackie Lambie, the only politician worth talking about, went viral this week for her fiery response to Pauline Hanson's vaccine discrimination bill. Now, there's 2 people I'd love to see settle their differences in the back of a Macca's car park, and the public celebrated her in the way that signifies anyone as a hero in the 21st century with a host of TikTok remix dances.
Being held accountable for your own actions isn't called discrimination. It's called being, you wouldn't believe it, goddamn bloody adult! Goddamn bloody adult! Goddamn bloody adult!
What a legend. The passionate senator also made headlines when it was reported that coalition member David Van allegedly growled at Mrs. Lambie as she spoke during question time, but his behaviour was excused when it was explained that's just how men react when any women in Parliament have something to say, nothing personal. Meanwhile, the trial against Ghislaine Maxwell for her involvement in Jeffrey Epstein's pedophile ring continued, with Epstein's pilot revealing that Donald Trump, Bill Clinton and Prince Andrew were all known to travel on his private jet. Man, what a bunch of upstanding guys they all are. I see no problem here, except that it does sound like the beginning of a very bad joke, doesn't it? But it wasn't all bad news this week. Christian Porter quit politics, so at least there's that. And to my favourite story this week, David Attenborough wrote into a Westfield centre at Tree Plaza to please remove a fake quote attributed to him in the mall. Despite being alerted by the vigilant people of the internet, what I love the most here is the idea of Mr. Attenborough going to the plaza himself. I believe it'd go a little something like this. And here we see the female adult attempting to navigate the notorious TTP car park as a group of spectators are now beginning to gather. They watch on with curiosity as the woman begins to grow anxious under their critical gaze. And for the last time this year, that's what the hell's been happening this week.
Wavelength.
Man, you left your best one for last. That accent, man, you nailed that. Attenborough. You nailed the impression.
Thanks, man. Thank you.
Pretty accurate, though. I can't believe that is even like a news story.
Yeah.
Like every time I read the headline, it made me feel like I was like losing grip with reality, and I was like slowly totally desensitizing myself to the world. But it's great that you also read that, and I'm not completely crazy.
Yeah. No, that wasn't a fever dream. No, that did actually happen.
That Jackie Lambie song, though, damn, that slaps.
I know. It's a heater, isn't it?
It's huge.
That's on repeat.
Yeah. No, that was awesome.
Isn't she just the best, though? Don't you just love her? Like,
she's so fun.
We need more politicians like her, seriously. You're just so emotional, so passionate, and she just doesn't care. She just doesn't care. It's so good. I know people might poke fun at her a little bit and whatever, why, because she, wears her heart on her sleeve.
Good for her.
Sure, but good for her. Shouldn't our politicians be doing that? Shouldn't our politicians be a little bit less robotic and have a bit of fire in their belly for once? She does.
Yeah, she's so human, and I feel perfectly representative of, I suppose, modern Australia. She just, I think that she just gets it a lot of the time, and she will talk to people and understand what their concerns are. If she doesn't understand a topic, I know she's been said to she'll go out and research it herself. She did that with gay marriage. She was one of the crucial votes in the same-sex marriage situation. And it's
funny because she does often find herself in the position of being, one of those, crucial votes that may make or break a law. And I mean, just recently this week, she decided to vote against the new voter ID laws that the government were proposing. And she voted against it because she went to the people on her website and she said, what should I do? She actually asked the people. She was a bit conflicted. She wasn't sure where to go. She saw the pros and the cons and she was a bit in the middle about it. And so she said, what should I do? She actually asked the people, as a public servant should, and said, what do you think I should do? How should I vote? And people overwhelmingly voted no on her website, that she shouldn't. And that's what she did. So, power to her.
Democracy manifest.
That's it. Democracy manifest.
Also, someone growled at her, which I find really weird. But the whole Ghislaine thing, man, that's another story that makes me feel like I'm going a bit psycho. I mean, as we all know, Jeffrey Epstein did or did he not kill himself?
Yeah.
The one question that I will never be able to answer.
Really? I feel like it's pretty clear cut, to be honest. I feel like it's the one conspiracy that really unifies all people across all political lines. It's the one that actually is like you read up about it and you hear people's evidence as to why he didn't kill himself, and you kind of go, that all kind of checks out. That really doesn't sound too far-fetched.
I'll go mask off. It's the last episode, but yeah. Jeffrey Epstein, he did not kill himself.
Yeah, come on.
Thank you so much for that, Hamish,
that's
usual.
All good. Anyway, up next, we're going to have a bit of a chat about legalising cannabis, but we want to know what you think as well. So text in. You're listening to Wavelength.
Wavelength.
Welcome back to Wavelength, sparking the convos about Adelaide you should be having.
So earlier in the show, we heard from Tammy Franks about her new bill, which, if passed, would make cannabis recreationally legal here in SA. What do you think of that, Hamish?
Yeah, really good. I mean, I think we're both pretty on board with that for no particular reason at all. But I think the main thing there is, the idea of treating drugs, specifically marijuana, especially as a health issue and not a criminal one, is the really important distinction there. I think we're starting to realise that approaching it from a criminalisation perspective is the wrong approach, especially when 1 in 3 Australians have tried cannabis. You basically,
1 in 3?
Yeah, exactly, and I mean that's the statistics we get from the people who have admitted to trying.
Yeah,
I mean, it's probably closer to 1 in 2, to be honest, isn't it?
I'd say so.
But yeah, as Tammy said, prohibition has failed. We've seen it fail again and again and again. And the criminal approach just isn't the right one. It's not. It's a health issue. And that's how we should approach it. And from that perspective, we should be looking to educate people. We should be looking to provide that service to people in a way that is safe, that removes the black market, the criminal element, and to be honest, fills, the government's pockets and, gets the economy booming. I mean, that's really the big thing there. And I feel like that's the way we are probably, best to angle it to get other politicians and the rest of, Parliament on side is to, spruik the incredible economic benefits. And I mean, you only need to look at other parts of the world that have gone, down this same path.
Exactly.
I mean, it's already happened and life has gone on.
Life has
the
gone on.
The world didn't fall apart
Not
in
at
those
all.
places of the world like everyone said it would.
Yeah.
So let's just take a page out of their book, right?
I love her vision, though. Her vision, I suppose, of a South Australia that's known for food, wine, and cannabis. And I think that can
and those
be...
3 things just go so well together, don't they?
They do. And I think...
it makes so much sense.
They do. And I think that from a tourism perspective, look, if we were the first state in Australia to do that, imagine, like Tammy said, imagine going out. You could go to the wine region and then you could just pop over to the new cannabis region that's popped up. You could go to these boutique dispensaries. You can make it a whole thing. It doesn't have to just be some seedy deal and like some side street.
Yeah.
Like it can be something that we can learn to enjoy and I suppose appreciate on a deeper level. Plus, like if people legalizing it, we'd have far more control, I suppose, over what you get. You have more higher quality product as well.
Yeah.
Plus, the money, as Tammy said, goes right back into our education and health systems. Why is that not a good thing? Why shouldn't we be able to reap the benefits of this industry that otherwise is just going to organised crime?
Yeah, I love the idea of, turning it into a very cultured thing as well, going up to the, the Barossa Valley and the Adelaide Hills regions to enjoy a nice bouquet of, purple kush.
But it doesn't have to be, but at the same time, people who don't want to do that but still want to buy a bag of weed, they shouldn't have to go to jail,
No, and they shouldn't have to meet Jono down some dark alley to get it done as well.
Yeah.
The benefits are huge. I think we can all see that. And there are so many places in the world that are enjoying these benefits right now. And what I think was interesting that Tammy talked about, though, is if it did come into effect, obviously there'd be some pretty strict regulation, as it should.
As there should be,
in the
like
same
there is
way
with alcohol.
Obviously, and there would be a lot of regulations around the packaging and things like that. And it kind of got me thinking, like, what kind of warnings do you think you would see, on weed packaging? Like consumption product may lead to intense snacking and a propensity for music by Tame Impala. What do you think they'd have to put on the side of the package just to kind of like, let people know what they're getting into?
Just a list of movies not to watch, and then also they're just
a
on
list
the other
of
side
movies
a list of movies to watch.
Yes.
Yep.
And
just do Where's My Car on repeat, honestly.
Yeah.
Have you tried that? Have you seen that movie recently?
No, it has been a while.
It actually slaps.
Yeah, it's classic.
It's
Ashton
so
Kutcher.
good.
Yeah, love it. But I mean, I think it's come time for us to kind of, get up with the rest of the world. And why not when nowhere else in Australia has done it yet? Why not? Why not get the jump on it? Why not
be the national leader?
Yeah, be
It's
the
not like-
first to...
South Australia's always been, I think, progressive legally. We were the first place to let Indigenous people vote. We're the first place in Australia to let women vote.
Yeah.
Why not? And then plenty of other things that we've done since then. But let's keep that spirit alive in SA. I think we're good at it.
And I think the time to be scared of, weed and
I think it's a bit gone.
Cannabis is well and truly over. You don't hear anyone going like, oh, did you hear about that guy who smoked a joint and then ate 3 pizzas and watched several episodes of Family Guy? Ooh.
Plus, it's quite accepted now medically. You can buy medicinal cannabis if you need it right now.
Yeah, exactly. So, we are already well and truly on that path. So let's just start running instead of walking. Am I right? Mm-hmm. All right. But let us know what you think. Hit us up on the text line 0428 927 927. Should we legalise marijuana recreationally? We want to hear your thoughts, so let us know. But anyway, up next, we're talking to South Australia's entirely gay rugby team. You're listening to Wavelength.
Wavelength.
Welcome back to Wavelength, sparking the convos about Adelaide you should be having. So this week, Cassie spoke to South Australia's entirely gay rugby team. What's going on there?
Yeah, that's right. She sure did. Cassie jumped on the phone with Cameron, who's the president of the Adelaide Uni Sharks, Adelaide's gay and inclusive rugby union team, providing the LGBTIQ community and allies the opportunity to be part of rugby union.
Wavelength.
So I'm a player and the president of the Adelaide Sharks. So we're Adelaide's gay and inclusive rugby team. And we provide a safe space for gay men to connect and play sport without prejudice in a safe environment. So in our team, we've got players from the Adelaide LGBTQIA+ community. And we welcome all players from that background, including straight people as well, who are our allies, as well as a number of supporters. We are affiliated with the Adelaide University Rugby Union Football Club, and we play in the 3rd grade competition in South Australia here. Join over 107 gay and inclusive rugby teams around the world.
How did this start?
So the team was started up in 2019 after a need was identified in Adelaide. There wasn't much options for gay men to connect other than at bars or on dating apps. So the team was formed, and since then we've grown from a few players to a full squad of 25 and have played in 2 rugby seasons.
What adversity have you dealt with?
I guess we've been quite lucky. Everyone has been so welcoming in the South Australian rugby community. Rugby is a very inclusive sport as it is. There's a position on the field for anyone of all shapes and sizes. So the community's really throwing their arms wide open and supporting us, making us feel welcomed. And we're also affiliated with the Adelaide University Rugby Union Football Club, and they've made us feel welcome and help us provide their facilities and equipment so we can have our team.
How good are you guys as a team?
So we definitely have been building on our culture and our skills. So there has been a steep learning curve for a lot of the players. Rugby is not a common sport in South Australia, and we've had a few previous players from the team, from the sport, as well as some Aussie rules players, but the majority have had to learn the sport. So there's definitely been a lot of drills and skills that we've had to develop, as well as the tactics involved in the game. So, we've come away with 3 wins this season, so that's a 300% increase on our first season.
Has anyone played the sport before? Have they had any bad or good experiences with other sports?
That's why we provide this platform for players. So they might have had a previous experience where they didn't feel included or feel safe in that environment, and we provide that platform. So we are an international gay rugby accredited team, so that means we have to abide by the objectives of providing a safe platform for all people of different backgrounds. So, in Australia, research has revealed that 87% of gay men remain completely or partially in the closet whilst playing youth sports in Australia, and 40% of respondents who participate in sports have felt unsafe or vulnerable in that sporting environment. So with these, alarming statistics, the Sharks have been able to provide a platform and a safe place for us to connect, build friendship, and work towards a common goal through rugby. So we've been able to break down those barriers and, do our part in eliminating homophobia.
What is the best part?
Watching the boys really build friendships and come out of their shell and build their confidence. You get first-time players coming out to training and they're really quite nervous the first time. Then from there, they'll start to develop their knowledge and their skill set, fitness around the game, and they'll develop that love of the game and really start to connect. And it's given everyone a real sense of belonging and community, and I think no doubt really improved the mental health. We also hold a number of social events throughout the seasons. We'll have, drag night, we'll have fundraisers. We had a quiz night this year, and we'll also go on tour, play other inclusive teams around Australia. Sport.
And how do we join?
We have our pre-season starting in mid-January. So it's a great time to come out and meet the players and the boys and come for a run around. We train on Mondays and Wednesdays at White Oval, and then we switch to Tuesdays and Thursdays during the season on Saturdays, and the season will start in April. So you can follow us on our socials, Adelaide_Sharks on Instagram, or look us up on Facebook, Adelaide University Sharks. Send us a message and we'll get back to you. We're always on the lookout for new players, so make that jump and come out for a run.
Wavelength.
Thanks so much for that great chat there, Cassie. Look, David, that was really awesome. Very wholesome content there for our last episode of the show. A great way to end things tonight.
Yeah, I thought it's a great concept. I love that allies are welcome and they're so open to everyone just wanting to just try out rugby. I know when I was in high school as a gamer and I found the sport incredibly intimidating and not something I wanted to do, but it's cool that there is something there for people in uni and I suppose anyone really to join up and just get involved. It sounds like a lot of fun.
Definitely, for sure. And it's really important because I think, you know, gay representation in male contact sport is still a really big issue. And it's so awesome to hear that these guys have a safe space to kind of go and, you know, everyone should have the right to, you know, pursue whatever it is that they want to go out there and do, whether that's sport or art or, you know, any hobby or activity. But sport seems to have a real kind of, male sport anyway, seems to have a real obstacle for a lot of gay men to overcome if they want to break into that world. So this kind of removes that barrier, which is really, really great. But it is also symptomatic of a bigger problem, isn't it? You know, the fact that they have to do this anyway in the first place kind of shows just how rampant that, you know, I guess that that homophobia still is in that world. I mean, you know, like Cameron said, 89% of gay men stay in the closet while they play, you know, sports or are in the sporting world. And that's really, really sad. And, you know, how good will it be when, you know, we don't need something like this, you know, when gay men will feel comfortable playing sport while being open about their orientation. I mean, it's great that something like this is going to, you know, do a lot of work towards breaking down those barriers, but we've clearly still got a bit to do as well.
Absolutely, 100% agree. I think it's incredible. But at the same time, I think it's great that gay people, or gay men, I suppose, have this other way to connect and meet each other that isn't just dating apps or CD bars. You know, I think that a lot of the way that gay people meet and is just less than desirable a lot of the time. To meet someone just playing a sport, that's nice. Yeah. And especially in a way to make friends. I think that I also really like that as well.
Definitely. That sense of community and mateship is you know, something that all of us can connect to. So it's great to see them doing that and props to the guys at the Adelaide Uni Sharks. But anyway, now we're getting right back into the music again. You're listening to Wavelength.
Wavelength.
Well, that brings us to the end of the show tonight. Thank you all for listening. It's also the last show of the year for Wavelength. And from me, David, I just want to say thank you to everyone in the Wavelength team, especially Hamish and Jamie, who've been absolutely stellar co-hosts this year, as well as everyone who's contributed to the show. It's been an absolute pleasure having you on board. Also, massive thanks to Marty and everyone else upstairs at Fresh 927. You guys have been absolutely superb, and it's just been a pleasure working with the team as usual. We'll be back, of course, again in 2022, so keep your ear out, I should say, for that. And make sure you're subscribed to the Wavelength podcast, of course, on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or anywhere else you get your podcasts. You can listen back to our old episodes right now, and you'll be the first to know when tonight's episode goes up. You can also listen back to all of our shows from 2021, which is just amazing. Like I said, we'll be back early next year, but right now we're going to go enjoy our summer. Don't go anywhere, though. Up next, you've got Deep with Easy G. You're listening to Fresh.
Wavelength.
Hi, Jeremy Cordo in the Court of Public Opinion. I'm just on air here to let you know that we'll be live streaming the Court of Public Opinion every Friday between 9 o'clock and 12 on jeremycordo.com. Please join us. We'd love to have you.